Good evening and welcome to the March 12th, 2026 regular meeting of the City of Gahanna Charter Review Commission, which is hereby called to order. If you could please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll, please?
Barnhart.
Here.
Belial.
Here.
Hill.
Here.
Maxwell.
Here.
Malarski.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Fantastic. We have a quorum tonight. Moving on to the second item, the agenda, additions or corrections to the agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. Next, we have the approval of the minutes for the Charter Review Commission regular meeting of February 26, 2026. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes to the draft minutes? All right, seeing no additions or corrections, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 26, 2026 regular meeting of the Charter Review Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Fantastic. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll on the minutes?
Lester.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Belial.
Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes.
Malarski.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Barnhart.
Yes. Wonderful. The minutes are approved as presented. Next is public comment. I would like to open the floor to any visitors in attendance tonight who would like to address the commission on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Anyone wishing to speak must complete a speaker slip and will be then recognized by the chair. Per the commission's rules, visitors are limited to 3 minutes. However, if there are no objections by the commission, that time may be extended to 10 minutes for the opportunity for residents to share their thoughts and take questions from the commission. Do we have any folks who want to speak tonight? All right. Considering we don't have any speaker slips, we'll continue to move on. We will move into the unfinished business of the commission. First up, we have the work plan and prioritization framework. This is a continuation of a discussion that we had at our last meeting on the proposed work plan and prioritization framework. Just as a brief reminder, the purpose of this framework is to guide the commission's evaluation of potential charter amendment proposals once the proposal gathering phase is complete. Following feedback from our last meeting, an updated draft has been included, including an additional scoring criterion for the strategic plan alignment, as suggested by Mr. Hill, and as well as there was some additional context from our conversation that was included on how amendments should be considered and reviewed. I tried to do my best to take the feedback and conversation that we had at our last meeting into consideration, and I welcome any additional feedback or suggestions before we consider a motion to adopt. So I kind of open the floor to the group for any conversation that you may have. Mr. Malarski.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I would strongly recommend that we consider maybe not waiting to the end to address all of the issues that are brought forward. I see that as being utter chaos in the last 2 meetings when we got 5 or 6 different things. Our poor city attorney's going to be trying to put the wording together of everything. We get the wording, then we say, well, it's not exactly what I meant, and trying to change it. I think that it would be very difficult if we tried to do it all at once. But that's just food for thought, I would say. So others can think about it, because I know I just brought it up. But
Any thoughts from the commission?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So the way I read this, phase 3, deliberation, prioritization, public feedback, and underneath that, apply to track classification, to proposals, evaluate track 1 proposals. So the way I read this, we could start as early as April evaluating some of the amendments proposed. Is that a correct interpretation?
I didn't think that's what we were talked about last time. If that is, then
Yeah, we would be, we have our meetings, like tonight, we have the administration that's coming in to share proposals and ideas. And then our following two meetings, we have board and commission members as well as city council members coming in to share their ideas. After that, and throughout this entire process, we have the opportunity for members of the public to also share their ideas with us as well. And after that's been completed, then we begin that deliberation process.
Okay, and then public comment, the meeting after that, we have down, right?
So every single meeting, there's going to be the opportunity for public comment. If there is the intention to have a specific meeting towards that, that can be the commission's consideration. However, I think that that's built in throughout the entire process for every single meeting that we have.
Okay, so how are you envisioning this, and I'm obviously didn't understand.
Yeah, so we would go through our public engagement here, which this is the first of our meetings. We're cataloging different ideas that come in. After we have a full spectrum of ideas that have come in, then we'd be able to take them, apply this matrix, the prioritization. Some may be more housekeeping, no-brainers or just legal cleanup and things like that. If we have more substantive items, we're able to use this matrix that we've been working on to be able to say, yeah, this is something that's worthy of consideration. We might want to get some additional input and education on this before we say, either, yes, we want to pursue this, let's begin drafting, or no, we're going to table this at this time.
So you're envisioning the prioritization occurring on the first meeting in April?
So it would be starting after the first meeting in April. The first meeting of April is our last one where we have council, and then we have boards and commissions. So it would be our second meeting in April really is when we could, really dedicate that time exclusively to some serious deliberation.
And so, it's 3 meetings then. Okay. So the last 3 meetings, you think, would give us ample time to prioritize and then debate each of the issues, and then work out the wording on it?
That's how I've proposed it. I am open to additional input and thought.
I asked the city attorney, how much do you think that's going to crunch you at the end?
If we do a deliberation and prioritization on the 23rd of April and consider which ones are going to be advanced to drafting, I think that would be sufficient time for me to get a draft to everybody by the 7th of anything that you all determine should be advanced to drafting.
7th of May.
Yes. Which would be our following meeting, right? So the 23rd would be deliberation, prioritization, and deciding which items are worthy of full consideration and drafting.
But
Am
not
I
full
incorrect?
consideration. Yeah, but not full consideration.
I'm
I
sorry?
mean, we wouldn't be giving them full consideration. That would be happening the next week,
That would happen on the 7th, yes. So,
okay?
Chair Barnhart, am I correct in the timeline there? If we were to do the prioritization between the 9th and the 23rd, because that does involve individual scoring of each item.
So, I think that there may be 2 meetings potentially that we might be having some serious consideration. It may be the last meeting of April and the first meeting of May that we may be working on that. But then we'd be able to make recommendations and then be able to have some further consideration after those recommendations and the drafts have been made going into late May into June was how I envisioned it.
Okay, so then the drafting for me would just be happening after the meeting on the 23rd and then potentially after the meeting on the 7th. And then we would be able to fine tune language on the 21st and then prepare that into a final written draft for council by the 4th. That's fine.
So everything has to be finalized by the 21st, though? Okay,
On the 21st, not before. You would have a final,
right, that'd be our final.
we would be able to tweak the language still on the 21st.
I'll just add that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I didn't see you. I'll just add that we're able to add in meetings if needed. So if something becomes, it's clear that we need to deliberate more, we're able to do that as long as we have enough notice to notice it to the public as a public meeting. We'll be fine there. And I do agree with the sentiment that we should not put off, like, we should get to the deliberations as, analyzing everything as quickly as possible. We don't know what's ahead, but we can't add meetings. Not that anybody wants more meetings, but if we need it, we need it.
Ms. Bilal, did you have a comment?
Only that I think this is a doable timeline.
I would agree.
And just to mention that for some of us that are newer to local government, I think it would feel inappropriate to start deliberation and prioritization without hearing out all the people we have invited. And so I think given that we've made that our priority, I think beginning in April is appropriate.
Okay. I think we can make it.
All right.
Good luck.
Can I just add also, Mr. Barnhart, I
ma'am.
believe it was envisioned in the process that there would be some discussion with those presenting, questions,
Yes.
answer, feedback,
Yes.
discussion.
We would
So
have-
it's not like we're going to be silent on the issues until the end of April, but there can be open discussion when each item is brought forth in public comment or otherwise through presentation.
Absolutely. I think that is encouraged, that we take the opportunity that we have folks who are coming to present potential charter amendments to us, that we take advantage of that time to be able to ask questions and just have that opportunity to be able to probe a little bit deeper, which will provide us some really good context as we do enter into that deliberation phase. Any other further questions, concerns, additions to the draft framework?
I saw that you added the piece about the strategic plan. I thought that was excellent. Good work.
All right, if there are no further comments, I would entertain a motion to be able to adopt this as our work plan and prioritization framework.
Motion to adopt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Delisle,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Maxwell. Malarkey,
No.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Wester,
Yes.
Barnhart.
Yes. All right, the work plan and prioritization framework, I'm struggling with that word tonight, has been adopted. All right. So moving on, we just have our upcoming meeting calendar updates. This is just a brief overview of our upcoming meeting calendar and invited guests. As discussed previously, stakeholder engagement is an important part of our process, and I want to ensure that we're being intentional about who we invite and when, given our timeline. Currently, we have City Council, Board, and Commission members coming to share their ideas on the upcoming March 26th and March 9th, or April 9th Commission meetings. Per our current schedule, I believe on March 26th, we have Councilmember Schnetzer coming in, as well as Ken Shepard from the Parks and Rec Board, Hena Deepa Patel from the Community Reinvestment Area Housing Council, and Sarah Paliea, Planning Commission and Property Appeals Board member. And then April 9th, we have Marissa Bowers as well as Hena Deepa Patel as well on the CRA Housing Council meeting. Mr. Clerk, has there been any additional speakers or presenters to that schedule so far?
I think that's complete as of right now, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll stay on top of that just to make sure that folks know who's coming in and who we're inviting to be able to provide just additional feedback. And as well, just to offer the opportunity for commissioners, if there's anyone else that we should try to invite, make sure that we have the opportunity to do so. All right, and then next on our agenda, we have public engagement process discussion, and this is just a follow-up from our last meeting where we discussed public engagement. Director Vollmer did reach out to me to say that we were going to be able to film a couple of videos. I think I've recruited a few folks to be able to do so, so I'll be sharing contact information for that soon. And really appreciate the different social media posts that we've already seen advertising the Charter Review Commission, so thank you to city staff for that. But also just wanted to offer the opportunity for any additional ideas or things that we'd like to see to make sure our public engagement is strong. I think we're on a pretty good track, so thank you. All right. So we are moving on quickly to new business. We have the presentation from the administration. We're excited to have them here to share their thoughts and suggestions regarding potential charter amendment ideas tonight. This marks the start of our intensive public engagement phase. I encourage commissioners to take advantage of this opportunity to listen carefully, ask questions to help them better understand the rationale, background, and context behind the ideas that are being presented. As discussed previously, our goal during this phase is to gather information and perspectives rather than actively evaluating the proposals. So tonight's focus is on learning, asking thoughtful questions, and ensuring we have a clear understanding of what's being shared. So with that, I turn the floor over to Director Vollmer to be able to share their thoughts and ideas with us.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair, and the Commission for inviting us today. As Chair Barnhart said, I'm Senior Director Miranda Vollmer. I oversee the internal side of the city, which is comprised of Human Resources, IT, Mayor's Court, and Human Resources. With me today is Director Blackford, the Director of Planning. Mayor Jadwin has a few comments as well when she's ready, and we also have the audience Senior Director Kevin Schultz, who oversees the operational side of the city, which is Parks and Recreation, Planning, Public Service, and Engineering, and Senior Deputy Director Corey Weibensinger behind him. He works with me and does a lot of different things in administrative services. And so we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about the city's org chart or questions about how that works. Also in the strategic plan, you'll find a broad overview of the city structure as well, the three branches of government and how those departments align with what I just said as well. So we have a few recommendations today that we would like to present to you. I did provide Clerk Van Meter the PowerPoint, which I think he printed out for you and will
We've got it. Thank you.
be attached to the record as well. So here's our summary of recommendations, which we'll go into throughout the presentation. Just a reminder, I'm the strategic plan person, so I always like to tie everything back to that. So as part of our Gahanna, goal 2 is to serve our community with high-quality municipal services that are effective, collaborative, and responsive. So there's a few strategies that these recommendations align with. One was to connect the strategic plan with the charter review process, regularly review and update city codes and regulations, ensure transparency and responsiveness throughout city government, and establish internal guidance of policies and procedures to ensure they are applicable, modern, and achieve compliance. So the first recommendation, I know that it was attached to the agenda as well from the city of Bexley. So we are recommending in Article 3 under the mayor, similar language there. In section 3.04, the executive and administrative powers to cause to be prepared and submitted to council a strategic plan for the city that includes the public an opportunity to comment, and then annually to issue a report of the progress that's made in achieving the goals and objectives of the plan. And then it also provides that this plan will be updated as needed, and such updates shall be submitted to council for review, public comment, and adoption. We do have draft red line changes that I'll get to Clerk Van Meter as well. Do you want me to go through my whole presentation or stop after each one for questions?
I think it's fine to go ahead and go through your presentation, and then we can hold
Okay.
questions at the end, if that's
Okay, great. So the next recommendation is just some cleanup. Under Article 4, the council talks about 4.13 public notice. As we're, finishing a new civic center here, Jeremy reminded us that we have to put postings in places in the municipal building. So this is really to allow charter to align with best government practices, to remove that posting in a building. While we do post, obviously, in other places such as Gahanna.gov and other places, just to remove that as well, because many folks don't visit those municipal buildings all that often. In Article 5, this is a continuation from the changes that were made in 2021 that the voters approved. So in 5.01, we have draft language that would better define the administrative functions of the city. Right now, you'll see in 5.1, it says departments of, and it lists all the departments, but then later in Article 5, it goes on to say that the mayor can create and establish any departments or divisions thereof. And like, for instance, right now, like planning is its own separate department, economic development is its own separate department, public service is a separate department, and engineering is a separate department. So it's to continue the cleanup of section 5.01, and then into 502, edits to better define how departments are created. And then we're recommending removal of 04 to 11. There was one section from that talks about the qualifications of those that serve as directors of departments. So that language you'll see in the red lines was just copy and pasted into 502. And so then it was the removal. We believe the removal of 5.04 to 5.11 will reduce conflicts with organizational charts in 501 and 502. It's just a little clunky how it reads right now. So it's a lot of cleanup for that. And then our final recommendation is regarding the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals. We're recommending to delete Article 12 in entirety to remove the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals. BZBA, they're not involved in land entitlement in any way throughout the city processes. Some of the other issues that don't align with best practices is because of their irregular appeals and meetings. As you can see on the chart, those are the number of cases filed with BZBA from 2019 to present. However, that does not include how many they actually heard. It's just how many were filed. A lot of them, they file and withdraw the appeal, or they're resolved, or most of the times they're just removed. So because of this, those folks on that commission, it's difficult for those commission members to have the experience and then know how to effectively administer our rules and regulations. Director Blackford and others in the room can attest to the zoning ordinances of the city are very complex, and they require a high level of knowledge of those zoning ordinances to interpret those accurately. And so without the regular meeting of these folks, sometimes that is difficult. We believe appeals to the Planning Commission would be more appropriately handled to the Court of Common Pleas. Director Blackford can talk more about this, but planning commissions throughout the region and BZBA boards and all different boards, they operate differently throughout the region. So he can explain a little bit of how they compare to other cities, because you might see it in another city and say, well, it functions there, but our city is set up differently, as like all the other cities are set up differently around the region as well.
Yes, thank you, Director Vollmer. Director Blackford, Planning Director, I would add to that Director Vollmer is correct in that the way the BZBA, the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, operates in Gahanna is very different than all the other communities. Know this from experience. We've had Planning Commission members who work in planning in municipalities in the region, and they've echoed the same thing. And what's unique about Gahanna is that our Board of Zoning and Building Appeals hears appeals of Planning Commission. I looked at 10 different communities within the region. We are the only city that operates in that fashion. And out of those, 10 or so cases that are up there, I believe probably 8, 9, or 10 of those were Planning Commission appeals and that. So again, it's an abnormality in the region, the way that our BZBA operates. Most other jurisdictions, their BZBA is more active because they review variances. We do not operate that way. We talked about this recently at a recent Planning Commission meeting, and one of our planning commission members who works in Westerville in planning said that was probably the best thing that we have going for us, is that we don't separate out variances from our other development applications. It's odd to me that other jurisdictions operate in that way, and I would say it's highly inefficient. So the way our planning commission operates, it really doesn't necessitate the need for the BZBA. And I think if we look back at previous charter changes, BZBA's duties have gotten less and less over the decades. So this would be continuing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologize for being a few minutes late. This happens to be a very favorable day for meetings and multiple locations all at one time. So thank you for your indulgence, and thank you, Director Vollmer, for going first unexpectedly. So the only comments that I really wanted to offer, and thanks to each and every one of you again for serving on the Charter Review Commission. This is a very important endeavor that's set forth within the Constitution of the City of Gahanna. And having served on the Charter Review Commission twice myself, I know what an important role you have, and I know how much time it takes. So again, on behalf of the administration and personally, thank you for the time and commitment that you've made. Really, my comments just want to focus on a little bit of the work that we do here at as the executive or administrative branch of the government. Because when we talk about the structure of municipal government, it can be a little technical, it can be a little confusing, because there's all kinds of forms of that. But at its core, the structure in our charter is designed around one simple idea, and that is clear responsibility and accountability to the residents of Gahanna and how we serve them. Under the charter, the administrative or executive branch is led by the mayor. That would be me, who functions as the chief executive officer of the organization. While council oversees the budget and sets policy through the adoption of legislation, the mayor and my administrative team, many of whom are here this evening, are responsible for carrying out those policies and managing the day-to-day operations of the city. To lead the organization effectively, I have the authority under the charter to appoint department heads or directors, as well as administrative staff and members of boards and commissions, building the team that's responsible for serving our residents every day. The department heads are individuals who are responsible for leading all of the employees in their individual departments. They are professionals in their field. Every single one of our department heads and our directors has extensive educational and work experience in their field, and they bring that expertise to work with them each and every day in performing services for the city. We have 10 operational departments here within the city, as well as a communications division that lives within the mayor's office, because as the chief executive officer of the city, I am also the official spokesperson for the city. So communications and marketing lives within the mayor's office. Again, I oversee the city operations, including the execution of contracts and official documents on behalf of the municipality. I have two senior directors, obviously Director Vollmer and Director Schultz, who assist with oversight of the multitude of projects that are underway at any given time in the city. With 10 operational departments, you can imagine each one of them has at least anywhere from 50 to 100 projects at one time. You can do the math on that. There are a lot of things happening at any given moment, and it takes a lot of oversight to assist with that. Each year, I deliver a State of the City address, which we'll be preparing shortly, to provide our residents as well as council with an update on the community's progress, the work that we have done, and the work that is coming up. The mayor also attends council meetings. I may participate in the discussion, help provide information for council, perspective on administrative matters, while council actually retains that legislative authority. And as you heard at our last meeting, over the past year, council and the administration worked alongside our residents, really hand in hand with our residents, our businesses, our nonprofit communities, and stakeholders within the city to shape the future vision for Gahanna. And that's reflected in the strategic plan and economic development strategy known as our Gahanna. So working together with our residents, we've created what I call a plan built by the people, for the people, that really shapes the priorities and the values that will govern the work that we, the administration, bring forth for the residents for the next 10 years. I think together this structure creates a clear, separate partnership. It's a separate organizations, but yet a partnership between council, and the mayor and the administration, ensuring that our city operates efficiently and continues to serve our residents well. I will note, Director Vollmer referenced the proposed change with the addition of strategic planning to Article 3 at our last meeting. I think Planning Next mentioned the city of Bexley has that within their charter. I have spoken to Mayor Kessler from the city of Bexley. He's willing to come and speak with you if you'd like to talk about how that works within their community. So if you'd like that, just let me know. I'd be happy to either connect you with him or find a time that works for both the commission and his schedule as well. But I know we've had extended conversations around how that came to be within his city and how that works for him as well. And with that, I will turn this back to you for any questions or comments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
do appreciate everything and everything all of you do on a daily basis. It's greatly appreciated. Yeah, so I'd love to open the floor to any questions that commissioners may have about any specific proposals that have been made tonight. Ms. Wester? Who-
I will let you go first if you like.
Okay.
Give me a look. I have a question about BZBA. So either one of you, you can fight over who answers this. These are easy questions. Generally speaking, I'm in favor of streamlining and not having people meet for meetings that aren't needed. But wanted to ask, so I don't disagree with the recommendation whatsoever, but did have a couple questions. Right now, is that a paid commission? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yes.
Per meeting? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that is, so right now that is a cost to the city. And so what you're recommending and what many other cities do is that an appeal would go directly to Common Pleas Court?
Correct.
Okay,
I'd like to just correct
Go ahead.
that. So it goes to Franklin County courts. It can either originate in environmental court or the Court of Common Pleas. I just want that to be clear for the record. Either of those courts, either a municipal court or a Common Pleas Court, has jurisdiction over that through the environmental court or the Common Pleas.
got it. Okay, perfect. And is that the only cost? I guess that would be the only cost to the city, right? To have BZBA, other than staff time, but, and they typically, if there's no appeal, they're just doing an organizational meeting every year.
Correct.
Okay. So when we see, well, it's not up there, but that's not a record of what they actually heard and deliberated on. That's what was actually filed.
Correct.
Okay. So it's even less than that, is what you're saying with that
Yes,
chart?
sorry, it will catch up eventually. Maybe. Yeah. So that was just what was filed with the clerk's office. That does not include what was actually heard.
Last question. Did I hear you correctly that all of the cities you checked within Franklin County, none of them have the process we currently have?
Correct. Looking at my notes, it was 12 different communities, largest being Columbus, but Dublin, Westerville, Worthington, Upper Arlington, New Albany, Hilliard, Whitehall, Bexley, Powell, Pickerington, Grove City. None of them operate the same way that we do. One community does not have a BZBA, and that would be Upper Arlington. So there is precedent for not having a BZBA. But again, looking at how those BZBAs operate, they really operate more as like a planning commission body, the way that our planning commission operates. Those kind of communities separated out some of the duties between BZBA and planning commission.
Okay, understood. So you're saying because our planning commission is in place and they have the jurisdiction, if you will, that they do, we do not need another body at all, is what you're saying?
That is absolutely my thoughts, yes.
Okay, I think I'm good on that.
I get it. Great. Well, you asked two of my questions, but I have additional question on that same topic. Given then that we would be looking at either the Court of Common Pleas or Franklin County Court, according to the attorney, then is there currently a cost to those that would bring a question to the ZBA currently?
Yes, there is a fee associated with that request.
$200 to file.
$200. Okay, and so then that cost or additional cost then would be transferred back to them with regards to going to court. They would have to go through court cost or whatever those fees would be, and that would be the responsibility of them as well, correct?
Correct. It would be their responsibility, and the way it's set up right now, if somebody's going to appeal a BZBA ruling, which happens fairly often. That would be the next step, is how it's currently, where it goes to court. And then they're
Thank you.
responsible.
And then going back to, I guess, the question versus the number of filed versus the number heard, can you provide us with an idea of the number that are actually heard?
Yeah, we can work with the clerk to get that information.
Just-
They run the BZBA, but yeah, we can get that information.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to have a general understanding, because clearly that's not a lot, but if the converse of that is, I think there's a better understanding of the need for transferring this into some other shape. Those were the only questions I had for that particular item. Thank you.
Any additional questions for the mayor and her administration? Ms. Wester?
I guess this is probably directed to the mayor. The, adding the requirement to have an annual strategic plan, I assume, if you said this, I missed it, I apologize. I am just aware from my prior experience that the state of the city is required by charter, and it's in section 304C. Is that is not duplicative of a strategic plan or an annual update on a strategic plan, but I assume it would be in that section. Is that what you're thinking?
That's actually a very good question, because if we were to add the strategic plan requirement within the charter, I think it's separate there. When you talk about the report out mechanisms, there could be some redundancy there. However, what I would say is you're not doing two. You would build the strategic plan reporting within the state of the city. So there's already a requirement to do a state of the city to provide updates and progress. The strategic plan would more or less ensure that the community's vision for the city is built within the framework of how we operate, and that the work that we're doing is consistent with that. And I provide the bumper guards when we bring projects forward and how we operate. So I think the strategic plan is a way that the residents' voices are heard within there. And then that reporting mechanism is probably built in to the state of the city as well. Does that make sense?
Yes. Would you want the state of the city requirement as it has to be done in the first quarter of every calendar year? Would you also propose that have the same timing?
A great question, given that it's March 12th, and I'm still writing it. So it may, perhaps, if there was some flexibility there, I haven't looked in to see what other municipalities require. I know most do them, anywhere from January through April. It can be a little challenging to try to get it done because you're coming off the budget season, and then you're trying to pull numbers, and every other entity in the city has their annual meetings, and there's a lot of work to be done. But it could help. It wasn't something that we had thought about, but I appreciate the suggestion.
I was just curious if that was something. I'm not married to that idea necessarily. I'm just looking at Bexley's here. I don't know that there's a time frame on here that I can see off the top of my head.
There is not in Bexley. It just says annual.
Okay.
If I could follow up with that,
Sure.
Mayor, I'm curious as to the term of the strategic plan itself. Oftentimes that's, sometimes there are terms applied to that. So it might be a 3-year plan, 5-year plan, or 10-year renewal plan. So I'm wondering, we have the word here annually. Are we looking to annually revise the plan, or just want to make sure I'm understanding?
No, sure. So the way the Bexleys work is, and I'm trying to remember if it's a 5-year plan, and then they will look at it over each year.
It's phased,
and
sure.
phase it in. So I would say that a strategic plan is in place, and maybe it's renewed, maybe there's a provision, the provision says that it's renewed every so many years,
Right.
but those updates are provided annually.
Okay.
Because those strategic plans are not, they're a good investment, and I don't know that that's something you want to do every year, because that's a hefty lift, but I would think every 5 to 10 years would be appropriate.
So, and thank you for that. And so I would just encourage maybe some clarity around the language, that there's an understanding that it's an annual update. And
Not an annual strategic plan.
Exactly.
All right.
Right.
Thank you for that, appreciate
Sure,
that.
thank you.
I was gonna,
Good one.
I was just gonna briefly build on that a little bit. You know, I would personally want to see something like a more regular, like every 5 years, the plan itself is updated. That way you do have some sort of requirement in order to make sure that you're coming back to the community, having that regular input and revising. And then as needed, sometimes you know, depending on circumstances, there might be something that's come up and you need to pivot and you need to update that. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that, because the way it read to me, it looked like the plan would be updated as needed, but would you want to see like a more specific time frame of when the full plan would be?
I haven't talked to Director
Evaluated.
Vollmer about this. She spearheaded the Gahanna plan, but I do believe like if there were a requirement for a specific number of years that it needed to, the plan needed to be refreshed every 5 to 7 years. But I would want to add a little bit of flexibility into that because keeping in mind that when I first took office, it was 2020, and 10 weeks in, we were hit with a global pandemic, and we were just
Right.
getting ready to start a refresh of the Go Forward Gahanna plan when that hit. So we had to put that on the back burner. So yes, I think requiring an update every so often, but there needs to be language to provide some flexibility to account for those extenuating circumstances.
Right, I think that makes sense.
If I may, Mayor, would it be beneficial to add some sort of language regarding a reevaluation committee that must meet every 5 years to determine whether or not we stay the course with a particular plan or require updates, rather than putting in every 5 years we must refresh, evaluating?
I don't know that I would put that in the charter. I think that is more of a collaborative conversation between the administration and where we are from an operational standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, and then council as well. So I don't know that I would want to put a very specific requirement like that within the charter. That makes it pretty difficult to navigate around. But I think that is the whole point of having the separate branches of government to work together.
Thank you.
So just considering that you know, a strategic plan charter amendment or having that specifically in your charter, that seems to be more the exception rather than rule in a lot of communities. What do you think is the benefit of putting that in there for Gahanna?
Good question, because Mayor Kessler and I talked at length about this, around the history of why they had one. And so understanding that, and I'm not going to tell his story, he can tell that if he comes. But I do think that having some consistency and defined framework within which to operate. As we all know, there's turnover all the time in staff and council and electeds. So having that strategic plan, I think, ensures a level of continuity that people can rely upon.
One other question since you're up there. I'm generally aware, but for the benefit of everybody up here, can you give a ballpark estimate of what a strategic plan costs? Because I think charter changes that have financial impacts needs to be evaluated when we're prioritizing these. So the fact of the matter is there's a lot of things in the charter that cost us money. So just being aware of the cost and the benefit.
I'm going to let Director Vollmer handle this because that's been her project.
Yeah, so strategic plans can cost anywhere from, if you're just updating it, from 100 to well over 250,000. We spent nearly $35,000 to $40,000 on public engagement for this plan, so to turn around and do that again in 5 years, in my mind, might not be the best use of taxpayer dollars, because it's not, you can refresh plans, like the one we currently have is a 10-year plan. So would it need refresh in 5 years and looked at again and get some community engagement? Sure, but would it need a whole rewrite that we did for community-informed plans? There's also lots of different kinds of strategic plans, and there's comprehensive plans that include strategic plans as well. And so I think having timelines can make it a little more difficult. Like Bexley, I know that they're mostly refreshing theirs on some kind of cycle, but it is, to your point, it is a very expensive endeavor. This isn't $10,000. This is, and then when you factor in staff costs, you're well into a higher six-figure number.
Add inflationary impacts to that.
So just hypothetically, if you're building this into your regular work plan, you have the expectation strategic plans are going to be updated more consistently. From a cost standpoint, that would be more you're building rather, adding on rather than building from the ground up the way that you did like with our Gahanna. That was
Yeah.
a ground up, all in kind of effort. So if you're looking at these regular updates, you're not going to be just totally tearing down and building brand new. So you might not be going to that $250,000 cost every time.
So the go-forward Gahanna plan was adopted in 2015. As I mentioned, in 2020, we were looking to do a refresh of that because we had just had the passage of issue 12 in May of 2019. So with that passage, how was that going to impact what we were doing? That got put on the back burner because of the pandemic. So when we did our Gahanna plan, it was 10 years since we had passed go-forward Gahanna.
So you'd probably be looking at every 10 years, it would be more of
With a refresh in
a
the middle.
larger effort versus, every 5 years, or even if need arises, like there's some sort of major external factor that's kind of changing, how you might need to plan strategically a little bit differently, it wouldn't be quite as substantial in those kind of off years.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right. Are there any other questions about Mr. Malarski?
Mine's on strategic plans, so if anyone else has.
Absolutely.
He's been putting his hand up.
Yeah.
Mine's on something different.
Yeah, sorry, if I don't see you start waving.
Okay. Well, mine's on something different. So I
Yeah,
wanna let everyone
absolutely.
hit that. On the administrative departments, it says 501, better define the administrative functions of the city. And as I'm reading 501, basically, it looks like it just names the departments that are listed in the charter. So I wasn't sure what you had in mind when you're saying better define the administrative functions of the city.
Yeah, so and I apologize, the red line was.
Yeah, I don't have
Mr.
the red, I don't have
Blackburn.
anything in front of me. That's why I'm going to turn it to you.
Okay, yeah, so I'll get that to you. I was working on it and ran out of time. So it says the administrative functions of the city department shall include finance, human resources, information technology, court services, public service. There's commas in between all these things. I know there's some lawyers in the room, sorry, I didn't. Yeah. Engineering, planning, parks and recreation, economic development, public safety, and emergency management. And then it says, and, this is existing language, and such other departments as may be created under Section 502. So what it does is, like I explained before, Section 502, when it was amended in 2021, gave the mayor the authority to create other departments and divisions, but then 501 had the departments listed. And so they were in, so when, for example, planning and economic development got split, 501 said they were still together because the word and was in there. So our idea is to just further pull out the 2021 amendment to just define the administrative functions of city departments instead of name it, like, because currently it says Department of Public Service and Engineering. Well, right now we have a Department of Public Service and a Department of Engineering, but the charter says they're one via the word and, so it conflicts. 501 and 502 conflict a little bit. And then further down in under 504 and 504 to 511 then goes down and they list Department of Finance. Section 5.05 says Department of Public Service and Engineering. And we have two separate departments now. It's the same for planning and economic development. So it's part of just some continuation of cleanup from 2021 that gave the authority to create a department. So now, in my mind, it's just cleaning it up to read better and be further defined as to these are the administrative functions of the city plus whatever you can add under 502 instead of listing the departments.
So you'd call them administrative functions instead of calling them departments as it's listed here? Because, yeah.
Yeah, so the red line that I'll get says the administrative functions of the city departments shall include
Okay.
these things, but there's the existing language at the end. It says, and such other departments as may be created under Section 502.
I would just add, in 2021, yeah, Mr. Malarski, you might, when we did the amendment, it was to give more flexibility, to create departments based on the operational needs. Because to Director Vollmer's point, we had changed some of the organizational structure. Still keeping those same functions, but just rearranging basically how they reported to one another or where we listed functions. So the idea with this would be this probably should have been done in 2020, we just didn't pay attention, I think, but it cleans that up, it identifies and ensures that those functions are in there and that we will continue to perform those functions which need to be done in order to deliver essential and critical services to our residents. But it still gives the flexibility to adjust going forward based on staffing, based on function, based on just the organizational structure and alignment.
Okay.
If I could, quick follow-up to that. So, and I'm in agreement with that, I think that's a great idea. My question then would be, the charter defines those departments and provides some definition, if you will, of what they are and what they do. If they're removed from the charter, where would those definitions exist after that for understanding or information or communication?
Do you mean the departments or the functions?
The departments.
Well, I think referencing those functions keeps it ensures that they're in the charter, but you're just not defining it as a specific department. So it could be that the, for example, finance and HR could be lumped into one department, because in my corporate, back when I practiced law and I represented corporations, a lot of times HR was actually underneath finance, depending on the size of the entity. So again, I think it ensures and protects that those functions will continue to be performed. It just might not be called the Department of Finance and the Department of Human Resources.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does. Thank you.
You could also, like in 501 where it says finance, you could pull the language up from 504 and define it, too.
Sure. Okay.
Can I ask a process question? Oh, go ahead. Were you talking? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is there a line?
Mine's a process question.
Go ahead.
No, I have this written down, that I have like all of those department listings, because they were kind of a lot of language that I thought could easily be changed at any time or any administration. So just, are you suggesting that 5.05 through 14, that we eliminate all of that?
Yes, but to Mr. Hill's point, there is definitions of what, like, I was reading the finance one, what it is, so you
Yeah,
could.
you could pull that up.
You could pull it up into 501.
Right.
I just think having the title of the department is
Is
going.
limiting,
Yeah,
yeah.
is limiting and then conflicts with organizational charts,
Correct.
which it shouldn't do.
I just wanted to make sure, because that was going to be one of my recommendations, so I just wanted to make sure.
I don't have the red line with me, and I thought our recommendation was to keep public safety.
Yeah,
So maybe up through 5.10, maybe? Was that it?
Yeah, so 5.12 defines the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, and Division of Fire. And then rules for the administration for the divisions of police and fire. It's important to keep those because, as I would assume you all know, the township operates the fire service for the city of Gahanna. In the event we would ever need to have our own fire department, that language needs to stay as a matter of course.
So I would think up to 5.10.
Thank you. Ethan and Karen.
So in my mind, the substantive change, if we want to call it that, and this might be more of an administrative change, but we're basically eliminating the reference to Department of as a formal title. And I will say, anybody that's paid attention to the budget, the org chart often changes with an annual budget. So you'll see versions and different iterations of our org chart based on needs, staffing, projects, that kind of thing. So in my mind, this is a way of modernizing the charter in a way. Might be considered best practices, I don't know. Any idea, any downside to not calling it a department that I can't think of off the top of my head?
I can't think of any. I don't I'll look at my team, but I don't know that we have thought of any downsides, or I should say that we have been able to identify any downsides of doing
I
that.
can't either, but didn't know.
City attorney, is there anything in the revised code that would ever say that we needed to have some sort of language specific to a particular department?
No. We have full discretion in the construction and creation of our charter.
Yeah, that's part of home rule, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good reminder for Everyone.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted to summarize how I understood this. So it seems like the prior Charter Review Commission gave some authority to the mayor to be able to create and eliminate departments. However, per the charter, there are actual departments that are specified. So you've kind of got a conflict there between what the mayor is able to do and then what the charter is saying. So really, this gives some cleanup. I do believe that kind of piggybacking off of Ms. Belisle, I think that it's important to maintain some of these functions and these definitions in there just to be able to make sure that administratively, yes, we want to make sure that we have a, well-qualified director of finance. You want to see those definitions and those administrative functions reflected in your charter, but still being able to give the mayor the flexibility to be able to create departments and make sure that, efficiently you're able to provide services. So I think that's kind of what I've heard of the intent of that. So I think that's a pretty strong idea. I appreciate y'all bringing that up.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, I had a few comments on the strategic plan and the BZBA. So for the strategic plan, I just want to point out that, and obviously the devil's in the details with the language, which is why I don't want to get bogged down in language today, but a strict interpretation of the language to say that the mayor shall cause a strategic plan to be created would put the burden on the city to create a strategic plan after this charter amendment is created. And we have one that we have invested a lot of time and energy into. So I would encourage, when we're going through the red line there, to either give a nod to the one that's already in existence and then say that we
From
review
this
it.
point forward.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That
then,
makes sense.
just as some edification, we do have other areas of our code that refer to things being reviewed on a periodic basis. And one way that we can do that is to have a deadline in which we can assess if it needs to be recreated, or if an update will suffice. So instead of saying that it must be created every 5 years, it can be that it must be assessed for viability every so many years, so that there is not a strict deadline to say the whole process has to start from scratch. Because I don't think that there was a defined scope in this strategic plan to a particular number of years that would require it to be redone. Miranda, Director Vollmer, would you agree with that?
Yeah, the plan doesn't have, it is known as a 10-year plan, but it doesn't say that in there.
There's no firm exploration date?
No.
Correct. So those are my thoughts on the strategic plan. As far as the BZBA, I just want to make a note that officially, the jurisdiction of the BZBA is for any exceptions to ordinances, resolutions, and regulations pertaining to all zoning, building, and landscaping in the city. And I make that distinction to say that typically what originates in Planning Commission are variances for zoning code and Chapter 11 only. And I'm trying to look at Mr. Blackford, but I can't see you over the podium. Is that accurate, Mr. Blackford, that Planning Commission's jurisdiction over variances from ordinances is confined to Chapter 11?
Correct, only Chapter 11.
So the building code and other codes that might fall under zoning, building, and landscaping in the city would theoretically originate in BZBA, although to my recollection, it has never happened that, in recent past. Let me say that. In recent past, we have not had originating filings in BZBA that have not already been heard by Planning Commission. There is some language in there that broadens the scope of BZBA beyond just hearing Planning Commission appeals. So I would just recommend that if BZBA is removed, that there be some broadening of scope for Planning Commission to address those other issues. Or that would certainly be something that's worthy of consideration of what the impact is of removing that particular board.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yes.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if there is a code violation / complaint that goes to our code enforcement and a decision is made or a fine or something's issued, and someone wants to appeal that type of a code violation, it goes directly to BZBA? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I am saying is, so those code violations go through our mayor's court. They are cited as essentially a criminal violation, and there's heard, and any appeals of that would go to Franklin County Municipal Court after it goes to the magistrate and mayor's court. What I am saying is that if somebody wanted to say, hey, this code in the building code should not apply to me for XYZ reason, and I want to seek permission to be exempted essentially from this code or regulation, the BZBA jurisdiction allows that request to be heard in that board.
They're the one that conduct the first hearing, is what you're
They
saying.
would conduct the first hearing.
Can
If
you-
they say, hey, this special circumstance or whatever, there's no guidance, to be frank, right? There's no explicit criteria or protocol the way it is with zoning variances. There's a very detailed, this is what you look at, this is what you consider, and this is what you can do. This broad language in BZBA, it doesn't specify what criteria to use or what the standard is or anything like that. It just says for exceptions to ordinances, resolutions, regulations for the city pertaining to zoning, building, and landscaping in the city, they shall have the power to hear and decide appeals for those exceptions.
Can you give an example, either one of you, of a type of building code that someone could appeal and say, I do not believe this applies to me?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, Chapter 13 of the codified ordinances is building code. That is Gahanna-specific building code. That is not the state of Ohio building code. The state of Ohio already has variance procedures built in. And I would say that 99% of code requirements exist in the state building code, not in Chapter 13 of Gahanna's building code. So that's why that's why BZBA, in the 12 years I've been here, I don't believe that there's been a single building code issue. I will disagree a little bit on code enforcement's involvement, because code enforcement is tasked with enforcing a few different areas of code, plus the International Property Maintenance Code. And there was a case, I believe it was in 2014, where it was related to code enforcement, but it was a zoning provision, and that went to BZBA at that time. So it's exceedingly rare, but basically how that would function is as staff, if we're administering the code and someone's like, I just don't agree with you, that's where the BZBA would come in. Again, that is a little bit unusual of how the different BZBAs operate. It's not totally unusual, but I do like the idea of planning commission if we want to continue that, because again, that's very unique. It's only to landscaping, zoning, and building, not to all the other code provisions. So it's very limited in that, but planning commission would be the much more appropriate body for those types of appeals, because they hear development cases, they're more familiar with our codes and our processes and that. So I think that would be something that could be incorporated into the planning commission duties. And there's so few of them that it wouldn't really affect their meeting cadence or anything of that nature.
So it just sounds like that, very small instance where the BZBA might be hearing one of those things. Under this, scenario, we would take that authority, we move it under to planning commission instead, for those very rare instances that you would have somebody going, yeah.
Yes.
And given that, then we would avoid those cases going to the Court of Appeals or some other body. They would just be heard by the Planning Commission, is that correct?
So if we were to eliminate BZBA, that small percentage of cases, that exception of cases, would not have any standing anywhere, really. Because it is saying that it's not necessarily saying that we are appealing your application of this law to me. It's saying, I don't think this should apply to me because of. It's asking for an exception. And so there is no provision to allow that to be heard in any body if BZBA were removed completely and there was no addition to planning commission scope for that. So you could not go to so the appeal to Franklin County is called a 2506 appeal. And so those appeals are for any final determination by the city of anything, but they are bound by essentially enforcing our code still. Right, so if we have an ability to do an exception or variance or something like that, then they would determine whether we followed our law correctly. So when they're asking for an exception, there would be no standing anywhere.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments? The only other thing that I had was just going back to the public notice, actually. This kind of just throws back to my days when I was previously a assistant city clerk in a different jurisdiction. I really do like the idea of being able to modernize that, but I didn't know. I can't remember exactly where I read it in the city code, but there was a reference to putting notice into a newspaper somewhere. And I didn't know if we wanted to do a dive to make sure that we were capturing anything like that as well, because, previously there used to be a lot of local newspapers, so it was much more accessible to be able to get public notices there. And I didn't know if we wanted to additionally, I can't remember exactly where it was, but there was a newspaper reference as well, and I felt like,
Daily Reporter.
yeah, so it might be worthwhile to also kind of go back and make sure we're capturing that as well, just to, if we're modernizing this section, making sure anywhere there was, notices of public hearing and things like that. So.
Yeah, I do, if I could, Chair.
Absolutely.
I do believe there is at least one instance within the charter itself of requiring newspaper.
Correct.
And I do believe that one or maybe multiple council members will speak to that in subsequent meetings. But yes, there are also additional requirements within city codes to also, look at in terms of public notice.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I kind of felt like that was a natural progression if we're going to be updating public notice here, that we might want to make sure that we're modernizing everywhere that we can. So I look forward to hearing some more discussion on that. Any other further discussion by the commission? Any additional questions?
Yes.
Mr. Malarski?
This is a question for the mayor that has nothing to do with what you talked about, and so I don't expect to have an answer today. But in section 3.05, it says that the mayor may approve or disapprove the whole or part of a resolution or ordinance appropriating money, but otherwise, the mayor's approval or disapproval shall be addressed to the entire resolution of ordinance. There is no line item veto for any other ordinance unless it pertains to money. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that. But again, I don't expect you to answer that today.
I'm glad that you don't expect me to answer that today, because I think I'm going to want to review this and get back to you. This was not a section I had looked at for potential recommendation. So just since I have the city attorney sitting here, for clarification on your interpretation, and is that the second paragraph of 3.05?
Second paragraph.
So your reading of that paragraph, Mr. Malarski, is that veto power pertains only to line items related to financial decisions?
Yes, it specifically says, or any resolution or ordinance appropriating money. So other than an appropriation or supplemental appropriation, a line item veto would not be appropriate, and it would have to be a veto of the full ordinance or resolution.
All right, let me take a deeper dive, and I will come back to you at another meeting.
Yeah, I didn't want you to feel like I was ambushing.
No, I appreciate the keen eye to that, and thank you for bringing that to my attention, and we'll take a look at that. Thank you. Before I sit down. Is that good?
I'm hearing silence, so I think you're off the hook.
Thank you. Thank you all for your questions and your
Yeah.
attentiveness. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, Mayor, team. Really do appreciate you taking the time. I know that you all do a lot of public meetings, and appreciate you being with us until 7:38 on the Thursday night, so greatly appreciated.
I do have one question for you, Chair Barnhart.
Okay.
This might not be the best time to ask, but while it is, I'm asking it because while this is fresh in our mind, I want to make sure we're on the same page. The discussion we just had about the reference to Department of, in my mind, given the process that we've adopted with a matrix, I'm just going to say matrix because prioritization is hard to say, the two tracks, would you agree, since this is our first go at any kind of proposed amendments, that the cleanup of department versus function, that that's more administrative and not, the matrix would not be applied to, for example, that? Is that your understanding or is that your intent?
Personally, you're putting me on the spot, putting it
I
to
am.
the test immediately. I believe that is something that, and ultimately it has to be a consensus of the group to be able to say, my inclination would be that since there has already been a charter amendment that was putting out an intention for how the mayor was to be able to operate the administration of the city, that this would be more of an administrative type discussion. However, we are a group of 7 and we can have that discussion on whether or not we want to manage it differently.
Okay. I'm in agreement with you. That's how I was thinking about it, but I think that's kind of a perfect example of it's cleaning up and kind of streamlining language
Correct.
to align better with the function of the city. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Only that I would agree that it's more administrative.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for already putting it to the test. I appreciate it.
Did I hear we're getting a red line version of what you're proposing? Okay, all right.
Yep. All right, so we will continue to move on. Have just a brief discussion item on the proposal inventory review. I wanted to put this on our agenda just to be able to make sure that as we're putting out our public agenda, that the different items that we're beginning to catalog are out there, public, and we all have an opportunity to be able to look over our current inventory of potential charter amendments that have been submitted. So I do believe that I would like to have the PowerPoint that was provided today by the city, if we could make sure that that is actually uploaded into the drive, because I think that those are some great proposals that we would want to keep in there on record. So I do think that so far in the drive, we have a couple of potential amendment suggestions. Mr. Malarski has his submission regarding primaries. Ms. Wester had submitted several, one on residency requirements and one on office qualifications, and then we had added in the Planning Next strategic plan requirement. So once we add in what we heard tonight, have we missed anything that we've had to date, or is that a pretty good accumulation of ideas so far?
Mr. Chair, there was an addition from Trenton Weaver for City Council noted in that proposal document too.
Yeah, and I wanted to have a discussion just briefly because I think at our last meeting, we discussed the use of the drive as more for submitting just proposals. In the correspondence, I wasn't quite sure whether or not that was a proposal or more commentary. So I just wanted to be able to have a discussion to make sure that we're clear and we're giving Mr. Van Meter direct kind of direction on how to manage that. If we do have comments and emails that are coming in, regardless of who they're coming from, regarding specific proposals that are in the library, do we want those submitted in there and cataloged alongside, or how do we want to manage that? And I wanted to kind of get a temperature read of the group on how we wanted to manage that moving forward.
My understanding of the drive was that is where we were housing proposed amendments. In my mind, it was going to work initially that whatever was talked about in this meeting, it would then be put in writing, put on the drive. The one submission we got seemed to be more of a public comment type of a communication. I didn't see any, hey, the proposed amendment should read as or anything like that. It seemed like more of a public comment. So I guess that's my question is this drive going to house, if we receive emails that are more public comment or questions or feedback on anything that's been proposed, are we housing everything here? Should we separate it?
I can't see a downside with putting it in for full transparency and the ability for the public to also get a clearer picture of everything. However, is there a way to separate it into amendments and then a public comments folder specifically, or how does that work? I don't know I don't know how you actually do it, so.
I just, is there a way for instance, Trenton Weaver to put that in the form of what he wants as far as if he wants an amendment to something, rather than just I think it's more of an opinion personally, so I would think I'm just saying, I don't know.
Well, are you saying, Dick, that you would require that public comment be put into a submission in proposal form?
No, I'm saying this particular one, I don't think so.
I'm really curious about this one because this is an email from the president of city council to
Right.
the clerk of city council. And it doesn't even say, show this to the CRC. It doesn't say anything about us, other than, hey, he's telling the clerk that this is his opinion, not even mentioning us. I think this clearly should be stricken. I don't know about the others. I mean, I think that is fine to see that, but I mean, this is,
I will say that, all of this is public record, and all of these meetings live on YouTube, and all of the emails are requestable and everything, right? So that's not up for debate, of course, but I think capturing public, what equates to me as a public comment or just correspondence back and forth, no matter who it's between, that would be an outlier process for other public bodies, I think, that the city currently has. I think that's a fair statement. I guess that's open for discussion, but I absolutely am committed to transparency, and it's important that the public can find anything discussed in a meeting. But all of these meetings are archived and on our YouTube channel from the point of live stream forward. So then the question is, what are we doing with all the commentary that might come by via email? Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and the only reason I say to perhaps keep it there is just for REs is really what I was recommending, but whatever you guys think is best.
If I could, I would just simply like to recommend differentiating between an amendment and a comment. And we just keep the document files clean and clear that way. So if it's possible, Mr. Vermeer, to, have a folder for comments, because I assume we will receive more comments as we move forward. So if we can separate that out as public comment versus an amendment, I think it makes things much easier and more clear.
City Attorney?
Thank you, Chair. So I want to say a word of caution before we start categorizing things as comments versus proposals, because I do think the discussion was, and I recommended that proposals come to us in any form or range of conception, right? So whether it's a concept or whether it's a red line or whether it's a presentation and recommendation, that all ranges are acceptable and approved. And I do think that in the course of obtaining public input and input from all the different bodies and groups within the city, that we will see overlap. And so I don't think just because this is discussing the Vice Chair Wester's proposal, or I think it was more of a question, I don't know that was necessarily a red line either. So I think that I would hesitate to put this in a separate category, because my interpretation of what Mr. Weaver had indicated is that he wanted or recommended that we would streamline all the public official conflict categories to try to capture current or possibly future conflicts that may arise. Because the conflict language, it's the most restrictive that is upheld, right? So the state has their own conflict rules and interpretation and regulations. One of the criteria that they look at is, what does the charter say? So the charter is actually more restrictive than state law is as far as interpretation of conflicts. So my interpretation of this email is that Mr. Weaver is recommending more along the lines of, you can hold any public office as long as it's not in conflict. And then allowing the state law then to fill in the gap there to determine what's in conflict, rather than having a redundant or confusing list of specific public offices, which is, I think, one of Ms. Wester's questions was, why is this in there twice, and why is this particular language about intergovernmental?
Yeah, I will say that in that email, it was referenced that he will be here at some point. So I think as far as interpretation, we'll let him do the talking.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
felt it was hard to determine what was trying to be communicated. there was reference to something you said in a meeting, a reference to the amendment I proposed, and then a lot of things captured in there that weren't, I don't think either one of us have brought up yet. So, but I agree with your sentiment, we don't want to spend a bunch of time categorizing emails. So in my mind, the drive was for amendments, so that everybody can see, hey, what are they considering? I mean, the main focus of this commission is, do we need to change the charter? If we do, what are we changing, how are we changing it, and how does that affect our city function? So, to me, that needs to be really easy to find. All this other stuff, it is always available to be requested, but I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but I was surprised as well to just, hey, it's going on the drive. I just didn't realize that. So thought we should discuss it.
And also, doesn't it have to be addressed to us? I mean, this isn't addressed to us at all. This is addressed to the clerk, from a council member to the clerk of council. And it doesn't even say, bring this up or make my arguments for me or anything. So I mean.
So I will just ask Mr. Van Meter.
Yeah, thank you. The email subject line is charter review suggestion, and the interpretation was that this was something to share with charter review. So that's why this ended up where it ended up. Now, if you do want other correspondence to be labeled in a separate file, we can do that. We can create another Legistar file, and we can warehouse it there until the body is ready to move that into this other 2026-0050.
Yeah, ultimately, I kind of like that idea, whereas we have our one Legistar file that is for the actual proposals, and then one for any correspondence that's coming in. Personally, I fall on the side of being transparent as much as we can. If we're getting correspondence in that is giving some sort of substantive input on what someone would want to see, it doesn't matter who it is that's submitting that. I think that just as members of the public have the ability to read the meeting minutes or watch the video, they should also have access to some of the things that we're seeing behind the scenes, emails that are trying to share points of view and input. So I would personally be in favor of having one folder just for actual amendments, easy to read, anybody can get to it. But I think that any correspondence that we're getting that's providing substantive input potentially on one of those amendments, just drop it into another that's just a correspondence folder.
And last meeting, didn't we suggest that best practice was for the public or for anyone to email the clerk directly and not the commission? So that might be why he chose, to
Yeah.
message you and
Yeah.
not all of us.
Yeah. So would everybody be comfortable if we have the two folders, one for correspondence, one for actual proposals or ideas of proposals? Everybody in agreement on that?
I'm in
Feel-
agreement with that, yeah.
Agree.
Okay, fantastic. So if you don't mind, Mr. Van Meter, in the future, we'll just, that's how we'll manage it. So thank you so much. All right. So I think that we are heading into the home stretch here. We have correspondence and actions, if there are any. Do any commissioners, have you had any correspondence or communications? This is appropriate. That they'd like to bring to the attention of the full commission? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, are there any additional items of correspondence to bring before the commission?
Nothing additional that we haven't already addressed.
All right, seeing none, we'll move to poll members for comment. Do any commissioners have any additional comments or agenda items that they would like to see added to the next meeting's agenda? I'll go around the dais briefly. Ms. Reynolds.
Yeah, when will we see those red lines come through? Or will they come through email? Sorry, the
Nope.
updates to the charter that were suggested to us, those red lines that you were referring to, when will we get to review
I'll
those?
provide them to Clerk Van Meter as soon as I can before your next meeting, probably early next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Maxwell.
Nothing additional.
All right, Ms. Belisle.
Nothing.
Mr. Malarski.
Ask the city attorney if you could look at section 10.03. It says in there that the city attorney shall prepare all contracts. Obviously, that doesn't happen nowadays, and I was just wondering if maybe come up with a better way to phrase that section. Review all contracts for sure, but not prepare. They come from all different areas, and I was just wondering if you take a look at that, see if
That
you
was,
can think of a way
10.03.
that might be able to better.
Sure.
All right, Ms. Bester.
I do not have anything further.
Mr. Hill.
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right, I have no further comments other than just appreciate everyone who showed up tonight and appreciate the work of the commission. It's been a solid hour and a half of work, so thank you. I really do appreciate it. So we'll move on to the best part of the agenda. I would like to request a motion to adjourn tonight. So moved. Second?
Second.
All right, the regular meeting of the Gahanna Charter Review Commission is adjourned at 7:55 PM.